Every week, Hillsdale College President Larry P. Arnn joins Hugh Hewitt to discuss great books, great men, and great ideas. This is the Hillsdale Dialogues, part of the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. More episodes at podcast.hillsdale.edu or wherever you find your audio. Also at the Hillsdale College Podcast Network, check out the Radio Free Hillsdale Hour, the Hillsdale College K-12 Classical Education Podcast, The Larry P. Arnn Show, and more, all at podcast.hillsdale.edu.
Good morning, glory America, bonjour, hi Canada. That music means the Hillsdale Dialogue has begun, the last radio hour of the week. And this week, Dr. Larry Arnn, president of Hillsdale College, is back with me as we break away from the Republic, the dialogue by Plato that we've been talking with Dr. O'Toole about for the last couple of weeks. We're going to talk this week with Dr. Arnn about the Republican convention and ticket, next week about the Democratic nominee, Kamala Harris. First, though, Dr. Arnn, how are you? How was your vacation?
Well, it was a cruise in the Mediterranean with 500 of my closest friends.
Well, you know, I no longer do the cruises, but whenever I did do them, it would be between 50 and 100 listeners. I would cut it out. I don't know how you do a cruise with 500 of your closest friends. Do you hide in your room?
Well, two of them were good friends of yours that I enjoyed meeting a lot. And they like me a lot better than they like you.
Well, that's not. You're talking about Rich and Beth. I hope so. That Rich is from New York.
Yeah. Well, they're. It was fun. We had who spoke? We had Brian Westbury, our friend. We had Victor Hansen, the great man. We had Jeffrey Lord, and we had Carolyn Glick. You see my dog?
Yes, I do.
And she's very tough. And so it was a great bunch of speakers, and it's. I
think a Hillsdale cruise must have the highest collective IQ of any cruise anywhere in the world. The people who go on a Hillsdale cruise are going to go, and they're going to know what they're wanting, and they're going to know what they know.
Yeah, well, I was impressed, especially impressed this time. The speakers did a fabulous job, but you get attuned to the way of the classroom if you teach. And the classroom is a production of everyone in it. And a great classroom requires great performance from everyone in it. Well, there were 500 people in the Galaxy Lounge on a luxury cruise ship. And the questions were awesome. And the attention was great. And there were some civil arguments that broke out. So it was at the end of it, I congratulated them. I said, you are welcome to hang around Hillsdale College. You won't mess up the atmosphere.
Dr. Arnn, I don't know exactly when you were at sea, whether or not the attempt on President Trump's life occurred before, during, or after the cruise. Can you recall for me when that happened? During. So what was the impact on this very smart group of people and lecturers of an attempt on the life of Donald Trump?
Well, everything stopped. And, it's one of those things where the news is at first sketchy. Somebody shot at the president. Then somebody hit him. And then, and all that unfolded pretty fast. Things are fast these days. And, you knew pretty soon he was okay. And then the abiding story is there was lots of talk about this. Was it a political calculation that he held up his fist? And I said, think what that would take. First of all, he would. How shall I behave if I'm shot? Did he ever ask himself that question, or is he just the kind of guy that he is? He is this kind of guy. He's very much this kind of guy. He turns and faces the controversy. And if you watch him, he always does that. And the Democrats are good. They've figured him out now, and they're good at baiting him because they know he'll turn and fight. And so that's what he did on that stage, and that is a great thing in my opinion. And he's very much to be commended for his courage.
Well, let's pause for that for a moment, because Winston Churchill was shot at without effect on many occasions from Cuba. and then bombed on without many effects in World War II, never did not turn towards the danger. When he lost his job in the World War I cabinet, as we talked about for most of the last year, he immediately said, put me on the battlefield. He went over to the World War I battlefield. He was never not willing to face danger. What does that tell you? Where does that come from? Is that courage? And I'm going to trust that you know the origin of the quote, courage is the most important of the virtues because it is the virtue on which all others depend. Yeah,
Churchill said that. It isn't true, actually. But it's certainly true. The virtue, courage is a necessary virtue. Virtue is the right disposition toward danger, and it doesn't mean not being afraid. In fact, it requires fear. But what it does mean is you put it in proportion, right? And there are lots of people, but most people have some courage, I think. Although the chances to prove it are rare. But if you live your life with the right scale of values, like we're both going to die, and so we should remember that and live knowing that, and that places things in perspective. And so courageous people, they have things in perspective. They know they're going to die. The question is how. A second thing is Aristotle is very strict about this, about all the virtues, but in particular about courage. It isn't a courageous act unless it is done for the sake of a beautiful thing. That is to say, something beyond you, something ultimate, something high. He says you actually have to have that in mind when you perform the act. And if you don't do it for a reason like that, it isn't courage. All the virtues are perfected by this service to some beautiful thing. And that's why I think see right there, I think that's beautiful. I think
that is a spontaneous expression. We're showing on the Salem News Channel, Donald Trump saying, fight, fight, fight. And that is not something that is rehearsed. That is something that is intuitive, Dr. Arnn, and it tells us something about his character. What does it tell you?
Well, he's courageous, and that goes along with determination. See, in other words, the Secret Service is swarming him, and they're forcing him down, and he got up against them, resisted them. And, first of all, it's shameful how that all happened, right? I mean, first of all, the guy was noticed. It wasn't very secret. There's a video of a Secret Service agent or some local law enforcement, some sniper, good guy sniper, and he had a gun on him, and he took it away, and shots were fired. And when he heard the shot, he immediately restored the gun to his eye and killed the guy. Why didn't he do it before? Well, the answer is probably that they're reluctant to kill anybody, because what if it's confusion, right? What if you kill the wrong guy? That'd be very bad. So the point was, it wasn't a good performance by the Secret Service. And on the other hand, Trump's reaction was fight. And that's what he thinks he's doing. He thinks that he is, I believe this myself. I know him a little bit, but all one can really say about the motives of any person is whether they carry conviction, knowing all you know. Because you can really only know what they are if they tell you the truth. But I think that Trump thinks that this is a fight for the Republic, and I think he thinks that he's the one who can fight it and nobody else will. Yeah. And then the fact that he was exposed to risk. Remember, that was in the imperative mood, right? Wasn't he giving a command when he shook his fist? Fight, fight, fight. I think that's what that was about. And I think that is what kind of fella he is.
This will define the campaign. Well, for a while, we're going to talk about Kamala Harris, like next week until after the Democratic convention will all be Kamala. And then we're going to reset the race, and we're going to talk about Joe Biden's abdication and what that means. But briefly before we go to break, Dr. Arnn, Did anyone change their opinion of Donald Trump on the Hillsdale cruise as a result of his response to almost being killed?
Well, there was widespread admiration of him. We didn't really talk about Donald Trump a lot. We talk about, the nature of the crisis. And, Hillsdale doesn't run political campaigns on cruise ships or anywhere else. It was a generally pro-Trump crowd, very much.
But I have heard a lot of former critics have fallen silent in the aftermath of that. We'll talk more about that after the break. Don't go anywhere. The Hillsdale Dialogue is underway. All things Hillsdale are found at hillsdale.edu. Go sign up for Imprimis, the speech digest, completely free. And to hear all previous Hillsdale Dialogues, head to q4hillsdale.com. Stay tuned, America.
It's no secret that Americans are more divided than ever. And it's not just over what policies will improve our great country. No, it's over whether America is great at all, whether America deserves our love. That's why Imprimis is so important. Imprimis looks at the issues of the day from a constitutional perspective, reminding citizens always of our great heritage of liberty. For more than 50 years, Imprimis has featured speeches from the smartest conservative thinkers and writers at Hillsdale events. These days, Hillsdale publishes people like Molly Hemingway, Andy Puzder, Harmeet Dillon, and Chris Rufo. Over 6.4 million American households and businesses receive Imprimis absolutely free. And I urge you to sign up for it today at no charge. To get your free lifetime subscription, go to hillsdale.edu/lifetime right now. Or text the word Imprimis to 71844 and we'll send you a link to sign up for your free lifetime subscription. That's IMPRIMIS to 71844.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. The Hillsdale Dialogue, the last radio hour of the week, is underway. Hugh for Hillsdale.com for previous dialogue. Dr. Arnn, while you were away, Dr. Daniel O'Toole took your place. And he'll be back, by the way, in 3 weeks to talk about Plato's Republic. He's pretty good at this. You better be careful. When you turn your back, someone comes along and they're really good at this. You got to be careful.
I can reply to that point very briefly. He will be back if I permit him to be back.
He was awfully good. We sent you a transcript. Did you read the transcript of that first conversation?
No, my day is full of important work. I will read it. The next time you talk about Plato, I'm going to join you because I'm afraid that heresies have been spoken. And I will read the transcript. Well, I will get it read to me at double speed by my computer. And, he is good. He's very smart.
I think you will think there are heresies there because Dr. O'Toole believes it is better to study Plato than Aristotle.
Well, I will tell you that, has it emerged on your program that this young man is married to my daughter? He is the elder of my two worthless sons-in-law. And he managed to, I didn't hire him to teach here. The politics department, in a moment of insanity, decided they wanted him. He is very smart and a very good teacher. Anyway, early on, he's interested in my daughter, and I meet him, and I know that he's a big Plato guy. And I said, tell me, explain the difference between Plato and Aristotle. And his response was, no significant difference. That's why he's been allowed to marry my daughter.
Well, I want to tell everyone, I've only identified him once that way because he would be a wonderful Hillsdale Dialogue guest, regardless of whether or not he'd married the wonderful Dr. O'Toole. But he's turned out to be very fluent in radio and television. And this is a skill set, right? Not every good teacher can do this for a variety of reasons. Some of them need a lot more runway. And just coming from the Hillsdale cruise, you must realize that, right? Some teachers need more runway than other teachers.
Yeah, well, it's a low skill set, and he probably hasn't. Yeah. Isn't he magnificent? I just love him.
Well, there you go. I love your dogs, too, and I just love Plato, and finally I'm beginning to figure out what the whole first book of the Republic is, and it's only taken 50 years. I took my grandkids... Are you still in Yep.
Are you still in book one?
You bet.
Yeah.
We're gonna finish book one in week 3 of the conversation, which we'll tape in a couple of weeks. But in the meantime, we're going to come back and talk with Dr. Arnn about JD Vance and what the Republican convention showed, because I haven't talked to him since Senator Vance became running mate Vance, and I haven't talked to him since the Republican convention and Donald Trump's very moving opening of his speech and all the aftermath. I haven't talked to him since the abdication of Joe Biden. So we got a lot to cover. Don't go anywhere, America. Stay tuned to the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Dr. Larry Arnn is back. The Hillsdale Dialogue is looking backwards now at the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, the abdication of Joe Biden, the nomination of JD Vance as the vice president. There's a lot that has happened. We're not going to look forward to Kamala Harris until next week. We'll go over that. But Dr. Arnn, what do you make of the selection of JD Vance?
Most of my friends were for him. I don't know him. He's a hillbilly like me. I did read his book a long time ago, Hillbilly Elegy, and liked it. And so, yeah, he's good. I think he's important. I think if they can win, he could be setting up a continuity that could last 12 years. And, that's important because it takes a long time to undo this mess we're in, if it can be undone at all. So I think he's probably very good, and I think we're about to find out. The hounds of hell are coming after him. I wrote an article published in the Wall Street Journal about his speech at the Republican convention. Did you know about that, Hugh?
I did not. Your team failed to inform me.
Yeah, well, thinking that you might keep up with the news, but I guess not. He in his speech, he says that America is not a principle, it's a home. And I thought the speech was a good speech, and I think that kind of talk is important and effective today. But of course, it is a home built according to an idea. And that's what I said in my article. Both are true.
I will go and read that.
In fact,
I want to talk to you about the key moment in the speech for me. It did not involve Senator Vance. It involved his mother. And when he looked up at her and said, 10 years sober, we'll celebrate 10 years in the White House. It was great politics, but more importantly, it was an evocation of all that is wrong in the United States and all that can be put right. That's what I loved about the speech, is that JD Vance is the embodiment of resilience. And America has been that way as well. And he's a Marine. And I think it matters. Do you think his backstory matters as much as I think it matters?
The backstory will matter a lot depending on how effective he is doing this. And, he's never done this. First of all, he went to Yale. He went to the
Ohio State University first. Let's be clear. He got a good grounding in basic common sense.
Yeah, I've read that he was turned down at Penn State, so he went to Ohio State. That's a slander. I didn't say that. That's not true. His backstory is important. And the question, in the race, there's a machine, and it's huge, and it controls huge things, most of the economy. It controls the media, right? And they're against him. And the question in the race is, can the people overcome that? And he presents that question almost as directly as Donald Trump does. And so that's the question, right? And they're going to be running against a woman who's a tough prosecutor. That will be her thing. And Trump is a felon. And she's a strong professional woman who addressed the border. That's their campaign. That's their campaign, right? And the other campaign, and they will have the media behind them. They already have it, right? And so looks like Trump's going to have a lot of money. And so it's going to be, I think it's going to be very close.
Earlier this week, I talked with Brett Baer, and we both agreed on this program on Tuesday. And we agreed that money isn't going to matter because they're both going to have enough money. This is actually going to be about ideas, I think, Dr. Arnn. I don't think you can change anyone's opinion of Donald Trump, and I don't think Kamala Harris, and we'll talk about this next week, can escape being a San Francisco Democrat. It's really about as stark a choice as I've ever had to make, and I've already made it. I'll be voting for Donald Trump, and you're not political. Hillsdale is not a partisan organization, but do you recall anything as stark as this choice?
Yeah, and, with the events of this year, unprecedented things have been done, right? I mean, Trump's being prosecuted all over the country. Most of them are falling apart, but he's been convicted of 34 felonies. And so she's going to run against a prosecutor against a felon. Now, what felonies did he commit, right? He exaggerated the value of his buildings when he was applying for a loan. That's it. And that's not a felony. But if you do it to hush up something or whatever, something about a campaign, right? If it's done for that purpose, then somehow that's how they convicted him. And that's a stretch, right?
I do not want to attempt to compete with Professor O'Toole on Plato or on you on Aristotle, but I will say this about the charges. It is black letter constitutional law that you must be arraigned on the charges with which you will be prosecuted. And Donald Trump never got those. I talked to his lawyer on this show. They did not know what the second crime was until the defense had rested. It is a disgrace what happened, Dr. Arnn.
Yeah. And so the point is, we're in a struggle for the country, and we have a stark choice, right? And the question is, can we see that choice? And we certainly are not going to see it through the same eyes. And there will be tens of millions of people who see it the way I see it. And there'll be tens of millions of people who don't. And some subset of that second group, they will think that I am disastrously wrong, right? It's a very divided country. And it's, this is the divisions are as deep as the ones in the Civil War. I've been saying that for years.
Without slavery driving the animus, it is as deep as that. Dr. Arnn, the first place that Trump-Vance went, the very first place, was Michigan. That's because Ohio is locked up because Ohio has got a lot of common sense and Michigan doesn't. It's got the University of Michigan. It's got Detroit. I want to know what you think about Michigan since you live there. You are a Michigander. You are from that state up north, as we like to say in Ohio. What did you make of Trump-Vance going there first?
Well, he won it in 2016. It's a purple state. The election system is not regulated with the tightness that one would wish. And as far as I can tell, that hasn't gotten any better. But the state is up for grabs. If a friend of mine who's a brilliant human being, it's not his line of work, but he's very rich and he's very smart. Anyway, he said that everything depends on Pennsylvania. And he's from Pennsylvania, so he arguing for his state. He said, I'm spending all my money in Pennsylvania, and if Pennsylvania goes right, then Michigan will go right. And so, I don't know. It's going to be very close, right? The presidential race is likely to come down to 500,000 votes scattered around here and there.
Even less. And even less. Probably 100,000.
Yeah, even less. Yeah, and if that's true, what I hope for is clarity, right? It'd be a great thing. Then I'd also dread clarity too, because we might get a kind that's not agreeable to me. I think the question before the House is, shall the people control the government or shall the government control the people? And that's the point. And so without saying who I think represents which, but you can probably tell. And I think that elections are now, the science of getting people to do what you want them to do is advanced. And there's a lot of money that goes into, and the media is on a side, right? So
not only the media, the report this week that alarmed me that I want to go out this segment with, Iran, not Russia, not China, they're playing in our election as well. Iran wants Donald Trump to lose. They are afraid of Donald Trump. They are playing online in anonymous bots in order to defeat him. What does that tell you?
Yeah, well, that's, we know, right? We've given a lot of money to Iran, and they have used a lot of money, maybe not the same money, but money is fungible. They've used a lot of money cultivating Hezbollah. And so we paid for that. And Donald Trump wouldn't have done that, he says. And he didn't when he was in power. And what we do? We paid them not to get nuclear weapons that they seem to be on the verge of getting. Why'd we do that? That's nuts or corrupt, one or the other.
Or both.
Maybe.
Not saying corrupt.
Or both.
Yeah.
So of course they don't want Trump. And, that's an endorsement.
It is an endorsement. If you were the nominee, former President Trump, would you announce all or part of the national security team you would be bringing in with you? We have a minute.
I would put Tom Cotton at Department of Defense. And whether I would announce it or not, I don't know. That, Arkansas is going to go the right way. It's both.
I would announce that. I would announce Mike Pompeo and John Ratcliffe and Rick Grinnell. I would announce a serious group of people as the people who are going to be running our country, because we don't have serious people right now. And that matters a lot.
So there's something for that. And you get, you might, if there's a state, is there anybody from Michigan any good?
No.
Ben Carson from Michigan.
Oh, yes, Ben Carson is from Michigan. Mike Rogers is going to win the Senate race up there. I'm going to come right back with Dr. Arnn. Don't go. Is anyone from Michigan any good? That was like a soft fastball over the outside hanging curve. Whatever you want to call it. That was the easiest thing in the world to hit. Is there anyone from Michigan any good? No, maybe. Hillsdale Dialogue continues. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu.
Hey there. Today I want to tell you about the Hillsdale K-12 Classical Education Podcast. This unique show explains how children benefit from an American classical education. Whether you're a teacher, student, or parent, you'll find something of value on the show. You'll hear from teachers and administrators from schools around the country, as well as Hillsdale professors and friends who are leading the effort to revive the American tradition of K-12 education. When you listen, you'll learn all about classical education, what it is, how to teach it, and why it matters today. And there are dozens of back episodes on specific topics, like teaching Singapore math, reading great books, and even understanding how athletics is critical to a child's development. Listen every Monday on podcast.hillsdale.edu. That's podcast.hillsdale.edu, or wherever you find your audio.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I kept telling the Republican National Committee when they were planning debates during the fall of last year, they ought to do one at Hillsdale College. They've got the facilities. I don't know if that big one is built yet. Did you finish the one that I saw when I was there, Dr. Arnn? Is that built yet? Opened?
It depends on which one you mean, but we have a auditorium that seats 800 and a dining hall that sits 800. So yeah, we got places.
I would think it would be the greatest place in the world for a serious conversation. But here's the rub, and we'll talk more about this next week. I don't think Kamala Harris is a serious person. I really don't think she's ever going to win the spelling bee. I don't think she's going to do any debates, or if any debates happen, they will be serious. what question would you pose of both Trump and Harris if you were asking them of a question that would illuminate the choice for the American electorate?
I would ask, well, first of all, Trump is, I would love to hear Donald Trump describe seriously what America would look like if he made the changes he's making. And I mean big things like national defense, retirement. And what he says about those things is they'll all be great and greater than they've ever been before. But, because he's obviously very ambitious to change everything back the right way, in his opinion, I would like a serious question. What does that look like? Tell me, what's going to describe America in 5 years? What about the debt? What about the retirement benefits? What about the death of the family, the decline of the family? What about all that? I'd ask him questions like that. And then I'd ask her how she did on the border, because that's, the big thing, right? She was appointed to be the border czar. And I looked it up this morning in preparation for this, and I very much don't want to do her an injustice. And what she was appointed to do was there was a bunch of South Americans there in March 21st, 2021. Did I get the date right? I think
you
so.
did. You did.
And there's a bunch of South American diplomats there, and he says she's going to go down there and look into the causes of why are they leaving these places. That's how we secure our border, is we get Central American and South American countries to secure their borders, I guess. So it was a little vague, but he did say, tough job, and you have to, because this situation is dangerous, he says. Right. Well, I would ask her about that. How'd that go?
The President Biden said she was being appointed, this is a direct quote, to stem the flow of migrants across the southern border and to investigate the root causes. That's been a rate. You teach the course on the totalitarians. It's like O'Brien went to every newsroom in a country, that's a character from 1984, and ordered them to memory hole March 21st of 2021. It's really remarkable.
Yeah, you can. And so first of all, she's challenging Trump to a debate. She's quoted to say, he's backpedaling. He won't fight me. So she's coming out swinging. And you know a lot more about her than I do, because you've lived in California longer than although I lived there a long time too. But, I think she's formidable myself. I think she's going to be a tough candidate. And
we're going to talk about that next week. And Dr. Arnn and I have known each other since 1989. So we actually became friends when George Deukmejian was the governor of California and San Francisco Democrat was a punchline. So we're going to come back and talk about that next week. But do you remember when Gene Kirkpatrick said San Francisco Democrat at the convention of the Republicans in 1984?
Yeah. Yeah, and the Democrats, they lost control of their convention, and in Chicago too. And
1968,
so they've had two instances where they couldn't put on a party that didn't embarrass them. And I predict that they won't have that problem this year. I think that they will manage. And I think that's because they've got more discipline than they used to have. And they, they got Joe Biden out, didn't they? And and I take some credit because I predicted on your show that Biden's name would not be on the ballot in November.
Yes, you did.
24.
And I hung on to that prediction until the Friday before he quit. I went on Brett Baer's show the Friday before he quit and said, I'm changing my mind. Joe Biden's Irish is up. He's not going to leave. Well, I was wrong. They pushed him aside. It's pretty hard to push aside a president, Dr. Arnn, isn't it, under our system?
Apparently not. That's what Tom Cotton said to me. I weakened for a couple of months because I talked to Tom Cotton about it. And he said, no, very hard to get one out. And but for more, about a year and a half, I've been saying, except for 1 week, 2 month period where I was under the influence of you and Tom Cotton, I said that and the reason is, it's just the polls, right? He's losing, and they can't lose. They won't lose.
And that is why they are so euphoric. They went from being certain of losing to being not certain of losing. But next week, we're going to talk about Vice President Harris and the old California which she and her San Francisco Democrat colleagues completely destroyed. Do not miss next week's Hillsdale Dialogue as we examine what it means to be a San Francisco Democrat. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu, especially the wonderful conversations with Dr. O'Toole, who will be back in 2 weeks with me, and maybe Dr. Arnn talking about the Republic of Plato. Go get the second edition by Alan Bloom and come back.
Thanks for listening to the Hillsdale Dialogues, part of the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. More episodes at podcast.hillsdale.edu or wherever you find your audio. For more information about Hillsdale College, head to hillsdale.edu.